Okay, so today we are going to be talking about perimeter, and I'll give you that definition in just a second. But before I give you the definition, I want to review with you one of the reference material sheets that you get when you take your STAR test. Okay, this is not new. Some of the things that are on there might look a little new, but you have had a reference material sheet each time that you've taken your math STAR test. So I want to point out here that we have several formulas. You do not need to memorize these formulas because they're always going to be given to you on the charts. Okay, so right here we have, let me go back and get it again. Right here we have perimeter. Okay, this is what we're going to be dealing with today. Okay, if I have a square, we know from last week's lessons that a square is a very specific shape, and it means that all four sides are the same length. Over here, P stands for perimeter, S stands for side. The 4 is because every one of these sides are all equal because it's a square. So in order to find the perimeter of a square, I do 4 times a side length. Okay, so if this square, each side is 2 centimeters, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 4 times 2. So my perimeter would be 8 centimeters. Okay, for a rectangle, we have 2L plus 2W. L stands for length, and usually the length is what we consider the top and the bottom. And the W stands for width. Okay, and the width is usually the sides. So this is telling me that I need to do 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So let's say this is 3 miles and 1 mile here. That would mean that I need to do 2 times the length, which is 3, and then 2 times the width, which is 1, and then add them together. Well, 6 plus 2 is 8. So the perimeter of this rectangle would be 8. Now, if these formulas over here are getting confusing, just remember that the perimeter of a shape, no matter what shape it is, it can be a weird shape like this, and I can still find the perimeter. Perimeter just means the outside of a shape. So I add up whatever the lengths are for all of the pieces that I see here. Okay, so this has a whole bunch of sides. I would add up all of the sides. So whether it's a square, a rectangle, a triangle, any polygon, because a polygon is a two-sided shape, or excuse me, not a two-sided, two-dimensional shape. So any polygon, I can find the perimeter just by adding up the sides. All right, so that being said, let's make sure we write down the vocabulary word perimeter. Okay, the perimeter is the distance around, I'm going to put a square around that because that's the really important word there. The distance around the outside, I'm going to underline that because that's another super important word, of a polygon. Okay, so again, all of those polygons that we learned about last week, every one of them I can find the perimeter by adding up the sides. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that down. All right, so now I'm going to show you a couple of problems here. So my first problem, I have a rectangle, and that rectangle's length is 8 meters, and the width is 5 meters. Okay, so I'm going to use at first just the general idea that I just need to add up all the sides, and then I'm going to show you with that formula from the formula chart. So if the top is 8 meters, that means that the bottom has to be 8 meters. Okay, and same for the sides. If this side is 5, this has to also be 5. And the reason for that is because of all of those properties we talked about last week. If it's a rectangle, then this has to hold true. The top and bottom are the same, and the sides are the same. Well, I'm going to just do some mental math. 8 plus 8 is 16. 5 plus 5 is 10. If I add those together, that tells me that the perimeter is 26 meters. Now, let me prove that to you with that formula. Remember, it was 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Okay, so I'm going to put it in parentheses. 2 times the length, which is 8, plus 2 times the width, which is 5. Well, this is 16 plus 10. If I add them together, that gives me 26. Okay, so whether I use the formula or just the general rule of add up all the sides, I get the same answer. Okay, now let's do a triangle. I have an obtuse triangle here. Okay, this side is 6 centimeters, this side is 8 centimeters, and this one is 12 centimeters. Okay, now there is no formula on that chart for a triangle. It was just for squares and rectangles. So that means I literally just add up the sides. Okay, well, 12 plus 8 is 20, plus 6 is 26. Okay, now don't think that all of our answers are going to be 26 today. That just happened. Okay, so let's do 2 more. This time I have a square. Okay, and this square, one side of the square is 12 meters. Well, if you will remember, they had this as the formula. P equals 4 times S, where S is a side. Okay, well, remember when we talked last week, the very, very special thing about squares is that each of the sides has to be the same. Okay, so I could add them up. 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12. Or use this formula, which is 4 times 12. Okay, notice where this 4 came from. The 4 is because there's 4 equal sides. Okay, so the S is what is one side length. Okay, so then again, this would give me 48 meters. Okay, and then the last one, we have another rectangle. And the width for this is going to be 4.5 feet. And the length is 10.5 feet. Okay, well, I know that for some of you, if I try to plug that into that formula, it might get really confusing, right? The 2 times L plus the 2 times W. So let me do that real fast, just to kind of show you. So 2 times the length is 10.5 feet. 10.5 plus 2 times 4.5. Okay, if that is too confusing to you, I totally understand that. Okay, let's just use I can add up all the sides. Okay, so if this is 10.5, this is also 10.5. And if this is 4.5, this side is 4.5. Okay? So, if I have 10 and a half plus 10 and a half, what does that give me? Well, half plus a half is a whole, right? 10 plus 10 is 20, plus 1 is 21. Okay, so that means this part right here is 21. Okay, same thing here with the sides. 4 and a half plus 4 and a half. Half plus a half is 1 whole, and I regroup that into the wholes. 4 plus 4 plus 1 is 9. So this piece right here is 9. So 21 plus 9 is 30 feet. Okay? What we could do is just think about the whole numbers by themselves. Okay? What is 10 plus 10? Well, that's 20. What is 4 plus 4? Well, that's 8. Okay? So the whole numbers are 28. Then, if I think of a half, this is half is right here, plus a half, that's 1 more whole, which is 29. And if I have a half plus another half, that's 1 more whole. So that gives me 30. Okay? So today, if the formulas confuse you, just go with the idea of all we have to do is add up all 4, well, however many sides. There might be more than 4, it depends on the polygon. But you add up all the sides to get yourself the perimeter.